Welcome, comrades, back to another episode of Minecraft Survival. My name is Sam, or Cobblestone. Without any further ado, Mr. Parrot, let's get into this episode. You might note when I started the video, I didn't include which installment in the series this is, for fear that I'm going to get it wrong in the future. So I'm just not even going to include, like, what number we're up to. Of course, I do know that this is 6, but I'm not going to be using that terminology anymore. I'm just going to be flat out introducing the video. That is the extent of it. You may note there have been some changes, not many, but I've kind of commenced with the interior. There is much more work to do to fill out the floor, to kind of format things and allocate it appropriately, because it's just kind of strewn out without any sort of logic to it, and I built out the second floor. I did conclude, I was tossing up either option last episode and perhaps even the episode before that as to whether I wanted exposed beam in the house or a second level, and I couldn't split the difference between the two, so I could not decide which one, so I split the difference, and I have now both. The best of both worlds. And I have a staircase as well, which was something I was really hoping for. And then you'll also note that this is where I'm going to put the kitchen, which is the first point of call today, is that I'm going to be creating the interior for the kitchen, which we shall do now. And I don't know whether I'm going to install a second level here. I think I will. But I don't like the idea of having a ladder coming up to the staircase. In absence of sufficient room to build a staircase, you kind of have to settle for a ladder. And I'm not a big fan of that, though. If I do, whatever I put in this room probably won't be used very often, because you kind of have to go through multiple hoops to get there. Or I even thought about putting a ladder like here, for instance. And, which I like that. I like putting, sorry, not a ladder, a staircase here, and then there'll be a door there, for instance. And it'll be above this door, and you won't be able to reach the second floor through this room. But that could be for a later date, later organization. I'm just going to think about the kitchen in the interim. And I have a stone that I cooked into stone from cobblestone, and I'm intending on using stone bricks for this. I also gathered a bunch of resources that I'm going to be using in the build. I'm just going to dump that all there without much thought, because I want to expel it. Plenty of food. Food is not something that I am short on. We won't be, there'll be no famines around here, at least in the near future. And I even have like cooked meats in there. A variety of food. I could almost start a grocery store if I was so inclined, but I don't think I will, because this is a single player world after all, so that would be awfully silly. This is the first floor that I'm installing. Dirt is out. Actual flooring is in. And a little hack, because I have a scarcity mindset, as we've already established, you don't necessarily have to use an entire block. You can just use a slab. A slab is sufficient. Gets the job done. Also realized, like, as I've been in this home, that the chickens outside are far too close, and it is really beginning to get on my nerves. Okay, it doesn't look that great. But I'm gonna decorate the around the periphery of this room, because I just don't like how the stone kind of clashes with the stone. It's quite boring, and it gives it a sort of like dungeony look, as though like I'm gonna be imprisoning people in here. It's very dull. Yeah, the chickens, the noises that they're making, like right outside this wall here, are awfully frustrating. So I'm gonna figure out a way to move them probably further over here. I'm gonna have to like try and maybe, I don't think I'll do that this episode. Or, you know, I could just like slaughter them and then take a couple over there at the very least. Like, I don't need them all, I just need 2, really. Though I'll have to like recommence with trying to proliferate them once more, because there are so few left. Anyway, that can be a job for another time. So I have a kitchen I'm very keen on. I'm gonna to think about how I do this. I was almost going to knock out some of these windows here, as I don't really think they're absolutely necessary. But we'll see what is the go. And I need iron. This episode, I think, is going to be a bit more difficult to commentate because it's going to require a lot of the mental energy in my mind to try and work out exactly how I'm going to get this right in managing commentary and doing a build that doesn't look absolutely awful. Sorry, I'm just soaking it all in as to what it's going to look like. Here's the plan. Here is the plan. That's going to go there. This is going to be the cauldron. The chickens are still driving me insane, but that's not to be forever. Then I'm going to have a board like this. And then it's going to come across here. And in the corner, I'm going to need some spruce. Something of this sort. And then, of course, I am absolutely mandated to put a cake down, as I do in all of my kitchens. I'm going to put that probably in the corner there. I'm going to find out how to get a better light source than a torch. This is going to be a little cupboard. I need wool because I intend to make... Well, maybe I could use pale moss carpet. At least for now. I don't have to use that moving forward. And I'm going to need something of this variety. Yeah, it probably looks like you have no idea what I'm up to, but I'm hoping that the outcome will be worth it in the end. I've also taken off my armor because I'm trying to be a bit more comfortable while I'm in my own home. We can lay our guard down unless, of course, there's like a raiding party or something that should come and attack me in the dead of night, which wouldn't be the worst idea. There was a raiding party that came before, and killed the bannerman, the chief, whoever bears the banner, and I hung up the flag on the tree. It was a warning for anyone else who dared to threaten me, who had ambitions that they should come and terrorize me and my chickens, and they haven't been back since. Though I'm not counting that permanently. I think there's every chance that someone will return, and I don't know. What should I put in there? I think I'm going to put 2 apples. Usually I put mushroom stew in my pantry. For some reason, I just like the look of mushroom stew on the wall. But on this occasion, in absence of mushroom stew, we're going to have to settle for these apples. And I'm kind of getting organized at the same time as commentating. I do apologize if this hasn't been to your desired level of engagement, but we're doing our best. This is how it's going to look, like such, and then here. Oh wait, sorry. There's a way you can get it to. Okay, maybe you can't. Alright, wait, I'm going to try it with a different sort of wool. While that is carpet. Slight issue, I don't have any brown dye, which you require cocoa to do, and I only have 1 brown wool. I have a spare white wool, but I won't be able to dye that because I don't have the dye itself. So I'm going to have to settle with carpet in the meantime, and it does work using this type of carpet, which is fantastic. And then I'm going to close that up. It looks, yeah, it's really throwing me off that I don't have the correct color of dye and carpet for what I'm hoping for. But we'll just have to settle with that, at least for now. And then when I make my way to the jungle, fortunately I know where a jungle is, but I don't think I like at all had, not even once, picked up any of the required cocoa to make a dye, just because I didn't think that I would need it. It really does pay to be someone who gathers all sorts of resources, even if they don't necessarily have a use for it immediately in mind. Generally, something will crop up in the future that requires you to use something. And I have to reset the compass. That's correct, because I did move the lodestone into the wall. It was here before, and it's been driving me crazy, but there we go. While exploring the area again, which I did do in order to find more resources, including the clay, I once again got lost. I really need to improve my bearings and sense of direction. It's kind of a bit embarrassing, but it's not to worry, because I then had to use the coordinate system again to try and make my way back. And what was I planning there? Yeah, that's right. I want to see if there's a slab. There's no slab, so I'm going to have to make my own slab. And try and figure out. Doesn't look bad. I think that's alright. I think it's fine, at least for the moment. And then I can come back to this later. It's kind of difficult to know whether I really like something when I'm in the heat of the moment, and you are all watching on at home as well. It's kind of like whether I've like struck the right balance upon first glance, or whether it's something that is going to require me to come back to later. I do think that like this, whatever's happening here, just sort of looks a bit incongruous with each other. So I'm going to have to do a bit more work to get that up to speed. And then we're going to look at the smoker. Usually I like to have a sort of chimney it looks as though it's like coming out of the smoker. I do this for furnaces as well. But I don't want it joined up. I want it freestanding, or at least more freestanding. So I'm going to move the cauldron. It gives it a sort of like industrial oven-like look. And then I can put that into the ceiling, which I shall do, not just yet because I haven't built out the second floor. And there we go. We have gotten started in making things look a bit better. I suppose I can move this over here, or I could, yeah, I'm going to put it here. And then the chest is fine there for the moment, at least. Oh well. Well, I'll think of more things to do. This is not the settled end point of my kitchen. But you can see the makeup there. I think for a cake I'll need sugar. What is it? Sugar, milk, eggs. But I'll really consider in more depth what I'm going to do with that. And I'm going to get started on building out the interior out here, because there is a lot of stuff to be done. And now that I've decided that I will be building a staircase to the second floor, doing so up there, I'm going to nut out where the door's going to go. That looks good to me. And then maybe I'll have to move up some of the oak in here. It is a more difficult venture. I will put it that way. Trying to balance commentary and the interior, though. I won't belabor the point. I think I've talked about it enough. And where is this? Let's move these over there. And I'm gonna put that on for at least a little bit of protection. I have a chain helmet. It's almost completely lost its durability. Every good Minecraft build requires, by necessity, a fireplace, at least in some capacity. And where I put mine could be quite limited. I mean, this is emerging as one of the main candidates. And then it'll also give me the chimney that's kind of sticking out the front. And that's like from the front view, so to make it a bit more intriguing, you have to like think about the logistics of everything. You know, like weigh it up in your mind back to front in order to get it right. Because, I mean, probably requires more thought than what I've given to it here. But you want everything to make sense. you don't want it to like look really crazy and as though you haven't like thought it out properly. And I'm going to put a block on top of that, at least for now. There we go. I mean, I don't think this will be like this could be my enchantment room, though it's not really big enough. And I usually have my enchantment room in a tower somewhere, just because I feel like every enchantment room deserves a sort of tower. Like a little like mystical hideaway of sorts. And this could be best. I don't like the idea of having just a dangerous staircase planted right in the middle of my interior, so I'm going to do this. This is one way. Save on room. I know a lot of people would like to see vertical slabs implemented into the game. There's like a real movement to see it. But until that day, these sort of trapdoor type looks are a good way of achieving what a vertical slab would do. And I don't think it looks terrible either. Especially this trapdoor. It was a very good day when the developers of Minecraft decided to add different variants of trapdoors. I think we do have a lot of wood blocks in the game these days, which kind of like probably too many almost. But when they began to customize what the other types of wood blocks look like, it was, for me, much appreciated. And then, yeah, okay. So that's what that is doing. It doesn't look terrible. Maybe if I do this, it might change something. Yeah. Who knows? At least for now, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I've kind of been umming and ahhing as to what I want the floor to be. I have a lot of red carpet, and I intend to decorate it with red carpet. But I don't want it to be spruce because there is enough presence of spruce throughout the build. And oak is too light for flooring. I think it needs to be something heavier and darker to give the room a bit more of a grounded feeling to it. So you don't want to use oak for your floor. I mean, that's not as a rule, but it's a general principle that I've always thought to abide by. And then stone, of course, no chance that I can have stone because it'll just create that ill feeling that I'm getting from the kitchen. So maybe I'll do a bit more brainstorming and thought as to what I could potentially use here. I've already got this dug out. And there are other wood variants that I could turn my mind to. You know, cobbled deets, like out of the question. Just that wouldn't look good whatsoever. I think I might think about wool a bit more. And then, you know, old trusty friend spruce planks if I really am struggling. I'm going to see what this looks like Yeah, I don't know about that. For the style of build that I'm going for, I just don't think that this is quite up to speed. It would look nice if you knew how to pull it off and add the right sort of context for it. It's really eye-catching, the white, but for now, I'm going to bracket that one, put it away on the shelf, and come back to it later. Put a pin in that. But we made some pretty good progress. I have bricks. This is what I wanted to do, as well is... Oh, actually, I'm going to create a couple of pots. Because you can never have enough nature and flower and floral designs in your home. And then I'm going to start thinking about building out a fireplace, which is going to go here, I have decided. And I'm going to need a campfire as well for that, because it can create that smoke effect. I remember back in the day, before campfires were implemented, you'd have to use an actual fire. And, well, that's if you wanted to create like a live atmosphere of having fire in the home. Or oftentimes I'd just use like a coal block or something. Or that was even like further back. Sometimes you'd even use nether, like nether rack itself. But if you used fire, it would very often burn down your home. And I've learnt on a couple of occasions how poorly that can go if you don't properly secure the fireplace and ensure that there's no wooden blocks or flammable blocks in the vicinity. Because if it does, then it really does catch alight almost immediately. And everything goes to shreds. I think before I lose this, that's where the campfire is going to go. Put it down there. And I'm going to figure out a way, I think, if I do something like this. That's what it's going to look like. And then I'm going to try and marry that up. Maybe I could even go like this. I've often used, what would the type of block be? The wooden block that you can get from a savanna biome. And you can have orange trapdoors, which loosely look like what the brick is, but not like exactly. It's good enough. I think it passes, but it's not perfect. I'm still waiting for them to have another variant of trapdoor, unless they have done something that looks similar to this red, because it makes it difficult. But yeah, I'm going to think about the fireplace more. At least for now, I'm laying down the blocks of what it's going to be and do something like this. Actually, I'm going to go to the top. This will require me going outside. Definitely going to need more bricks. That's why I have got them in the furnace. And where is it? Here we are. Yeah, okay. Yeah, of course, not done, but for now, there we go. Something on the agenda as well. Okay, it appears as though the plan of attack has changed, as I've had some ideas as to what the flooring should be. And something that came to mind is terracotta, in particular grey terracotta, because I think it could go quite well with this woody and stony environment that I have built up. And that will require converting some of these clay blocks and some of the clay that I just dug out into terracotta, as opposed to using exclusively bricks. So I've switched across. I have 32 bricks from the previous batch of clay that I made. And this, of course, will be put towards the fireplace, but there are many projects that are working along simultaneously to each other, and I have to divide the resources appropriately to get it all going. Particularly for this interior, as I actually find it more simple and straightforward to build out like a building and a structure itself. And then when you get to the interior, it's very much like where the devil is, as there's a lot of detail that you have to be across. And I'm quite sick of these chickens. So if you are squeamish and you don't like to see a mass destruction of birds, then I would really counsel you to look away, avert your gaze now. But these chickens have made more than enough clucking sounds, and they shall cluck, or most of them shall cluck no more, and I will leave a few of the lucky ones. I think just one more. Okay, there we go. Now we have 4. That's good. It'll also give me the opportunity to make some feathers, as I was cultivating a bit of flint from some gravel earlier. So this will be much appreciated as far as my projectile capabilities are concerned. I can penetrate with more arrows. I only have 15, and I also need a new bow because this one is at the end of its service. And it also doesn't have any useful enchants on it, besides unbreaking, but not as useful as, say, a power 5 bow would be, which would be devastating for my enemies. Putting these away, I do need the grey dye. I have 4 grey dye already, which is not terrible, but I need to think about more. A lot of building and management in this game is as much concerned with organizing your inventory and stay on top of the housekeeping. I'm not someone, I don't want to like diagnose myself as having OCD, because I don't think I do. But to some extent or the other, I do like to keep things like fairly clean and organized. Otherwise I find I just spent too long doing menial tasks, where if I systematized and had a process in place for how I manage my items and belongings, then I think it would save me a lot more time. And let's have a look at what this is going to look like. Yeah, I'm just going to go for it. It's not very often that when I'm building, I use Terracotta. Or at least if I do, it's in creative mode, and it's hardly ever. Just, yeah, I like this. I like it. Yeah, I think it looks good. The terracotta, it kind of famously lacks for detail. It's a very smooth looking block. It's almost like it's not even there to begin with. But I think it adds something. And it's a bit different and more unusual to what you'd expect, rather than just using another variant of wood or stone. So I'm going to need a lot more of it if I'm going to fill out this bottom floor. Clay is never been something that I've much enjoyed to gather, but that I think will give more of an explorative feel to this episode, as now I have something that I can go and do, which is find clay, and also at the same time I'm going to want to hunt down a few squid so I can harvest ink sac from them. Let's have a look at that now. I'm kind of thinking what I need to take with me. I suppose I'll take deep slate. Usually I always have like cobblestone in my inventory or something in case I need to. Oh, I need another shovel. And I'm going to also collect my armor again to ensure that nothing terrible should happen to me while I'm out there. This is... I can do quickly, and we are go. We are a go. I did like run up and down the river bank earlier in order to look for clay. I wasn't looking for any squids, so I'm gonna try and like travel distantly from my home again, so I'm not plundering the natural resources in the area, which will then require me to have to think more about how I'm going to cover up like big craters in the ground. And there is a pack of squids down here. I don't know what the collective term for a squid is. I don't even know if you can pluralize the word squid. I've been saying squids, but squids somewhat sounds wrong, like similar to fish. Boy, he got far away. That is a very quick creature. And I missed. There we go. Got him. Got him in the end. The first one gave me 3 sacks. That one, I don't know if it gave me any. It did. It's back here though. Looks like 2, or it could be 3. It's 2. I'm going to try and shoot this one. Okay. Yeah, okay. A single arrow shot should do the trick, which is useful to know if they ever surface, which this one seems to have done. Not the easiest mob in the world to kill. But, oh boy, yeah, that one. They shoot so far away, I didn't even know that they could do that. Like, ink sac is not something that I am ever, like, really interested in gathering. Like, I can't really think of many uses for it besides dye, and then also if you were to create a book and quill, it would also require that. And it just jumped into the boat. It just trapped itself. It's quite unfortunate for the fate of the squid, but fortunate for me because it keeps it in one area that I can manage. Oh boy. See, they swim away. Dead. Right. That should be enough. I don't want to like completely clear the ocean or this area of all the squid. you only take what you need and then you leave the rest for next time. That is the principle of sustainability and sustainable practices. And because I left the other boat over there, I can use this boat. Gathering clay. And there has been some recent news in the Minecraft world. I spoke about this like earlier in the season, but the Minecraft film has been released. I think it was April 4 was the release date. I haven't been to see it yet. I think I will go and see it with some of my friends. That's just what you do when you're a young man. You go and watch the Minecraft film, because what else are you going to do with your life except watch like yet another Jack Black film. I love Jack Black. He's fantastic. I've always enjoyed his comedy and his acting. And when he's, I suppose, was announced as the role of Steve in Minecraft, it was an interesting feeling that came over me. I could have never anticipated 15 years ago that, well, if you told me 15 years ago that Jack Black would one day play the role of Steve in a Minecraft film, I would have just like not been able to comprehend that. The popularity of this game is truly something that continues to astound me. And it continues to go in directions that I could have never possibly forecasted. A film, like, you could anticipate that they would make a film about the game one day, because they seem to make films about everything if they smell that there'll be like some sort of profit to be gained from it and there's an audience and a market there for people interested in this topic. But I didn't realize they would go in the direction that they did with the Minecraft film. I thought it would be like purely animated, though I think it's arrived at an interesting time where like pure animation, particularly as it used to be, if you think about like in the 90s with some of the Disney films in the early 2000s, it's not nearly as popular as it used to be. And you could raise the critique of that idea by saying like, I'm slightly older now and I'm only saying that and purely animated films aren't as popular as they were back then because I was watching them when I was a kid, and so there's like a sort of bias in my mind that I'm no longer watching animated films while I'm a bit older, so therefore I'm thinking they don't exist. I acknowledge that they do exist and they continue to make them, the animation companies, but I think the style of animation is very different. There's less appetite than what there used to be. And the reason I would say that, I would first of all point to the presence of all these live action films that are being developed. These films are coming up as remakes of existing films that were once animated. I mean, I don't really need to like pull many examples, as you would be familiar with the majority of them, like Snow White, Wicked, The Lion King. I mean, who would have ever thought that they would remake The Lion King and do it with like real lions as opposed to anything else? So that's kind of my long-winded way of saying I thought that the Minecraft film would be like exclusively animated and it would not strike a balance between animation and live action. Well, like I suppose CGI, computer-generated images, is what it would be as opposed to like animation. And this is a really beautiful looking area. I've also kind of configured it as such that I have a lot of fog in the game. It's not something that I had before. But I really like the look of fog, especially because I don't have my render distance set super high for the sake of trying to like maintain strong performance. So it's kind of not at its maximum. And with the fog as well, it gives it this really cool sort of sense of distance and time and locality, which I love. Fog has always been something that I've appreciated in producing an aesthetic Minecraft. Anyway, back to my discussion of the film. Yeah, it kind of arrived at an interesting time, and there's a lot of appetite for live action stuff and like being able to see the actors, and you can understand why that's the case. Because it's much more emotive and the actors actually have the ability to rely upon their physical presence in conveying their characters. And someone like Jack Black as well, you couldn't quite do it the same if you're Jack Black, as you could, were you just the voiceover of Minecraft Steve, for instance. So that is one interesting little thing that I think, I'm not sure who the studio is that produced Minecraft. Of course, they would have went through an extensive process with like being able to obtain permission to use the brand. Minecraft is a massive game and it commands a lot of attention, so they wouldn't like flippantly throw it out, the use of like the first film, to whoever was interested. And they've definitely gone with the route of producing something that's high budget, high value, and I think so far it seems to have worked. It's only been released now for I think like a day or so. I'd have to like confirm that it was April the 4th that it was released. I'm in Australia, so I suppose I'm a day ahead, more or less, which again is something else for me to think about, because the release times are different. And I know in the past, when films were released in Australia, there would be like a massive lag, so we wouldn't get them immediately. Oftentimes we'd get them like a month or two after, which was so frustrating for me as a kid, though of course I've kind of moved on for that. I don't really care anymore. But yeah, that's kind of neither here nor there. I will go and watch it, and I will critique it. I will be honest. As I said, Jack Black has always been someone I've liked. Perhaps it's the nostalgia growing up with him on a lot of films that I watched as a kid. He was someone that I always resonated with, and he would be into pretty good films like School of Rock. I know I love Nacho Libre. Kind of dated now, and I don't know if like people still watch those films, but those of like the recent generation that I was in, that was some of the main stuff that we turned our attention to. I'm going to trap these chickens here. Oh, they're escaping. No, you do not. You don't do that. That's not something that I'm going to let you do. How dare you get away with it? Actually, I think I'm just going to destroy this fence and then move it like way over there. I'm a bit weird. I'm very mindful of the fact that I'm doing this at night, and I don't want a creeper to sneak up on me again, as these woods are completely unguarded and they are not lit up. So they present ample room and opportunity for any mobs that should be so opportunistic and come out from the dark of night. This is going to be moved quite easy. Actually, I might put it around the front of the premise, near where I've kept everything else. I want to keep this more of like a dock area, but I'm going to put it here. Yeah. And then I think the next episode's plan is going to be exploring down there, because I found an abandoned mine shaft that I haven't quite had the nerve to go into, but it looked like it was quite deep, and it was very ominous. There were a bunch of cave spiders that jumped out at me because there was a spawner right there. So I'm going to do that in the next episode. That's going to be the plan of attack on the agenda, is to explore that, which I wanted to do on camera. And then hopefully, surprisingly, I've struggled to find coal, and I've also struggled to find iron, which are two things that are usually plentiful in a Minecraft world. And of course diamonds, like you can never have enough diamond, really. And then once I get that, I think after my next mining expedition, hopefully it'll set me up for a period long enough where I can then go to the nether, and I will have enough like resources and protection to do so, which will also include me getting some level 30 enchants on a couple of items, hopefully some diamond items. And then once I make my way to the nether, I'll have the opportunity to find netherrack and get started with that. Black dye has been acquired. Hope that's enough. I have enough bones in here, I'm sure of it. And then this is how you do it. It's kind of like a bit of a lengthy process converting stuff into dyes. I think in the past there wasn't even like a dedicated dye block and or item. This is probably annoying that I have to like try and recount everything, but the game used to be, rather than like just talking about the game as it stands. But anyway, I want to finish this point, is that there used to not be dedicated dye blocks. You could just like create things. I'm pretty sure that was the case. Like I remember with roses, for instance, you would just use the rose flower itself and combine that with like wool or something to dye the wool, as opposed to now, which is quite different. Bit of an interesting look. But I think I'm going to be able to pull it off. You'll have to bear with me. At least in the interim, things might not look as aesthetically pleasing as you might hope, but you have to trust the process. The process exists for a reason, and those who are unable to trust the process shall not be rewarded in the long term as to those who do. And I, for you, dear viewer, shall vindicate the importance of the process. And this is going to be the floor. I have some like cool little like nooks and crannies that I have in mind for how this interior is going to look. I might do a bit of that stuff off camera just so I can like organize it a bit better, so I'm not like thinking mindlessly through these episodes about what I'm going to do next. I think that is pretty good progress. Things looking better. Actually, that's one thing I wanted to do, was come up here and knock out the wall so I can get a window going. This is big enough, I suppose. Actually, I might even like open it right up. Usually I don't have windows this large, but I'll see how it looks. And if it doesn't look good, then I can go back out there and readdress it. Yeah, you know, I don't really like it. I just, perhaps it's because of the fact that with the glass pane they kind of have a border to them, and then when you put them successively, it looks a bit weird. That almost looks like it gives me like the feeling of like a church or a chapel or something, as opposed to a house. And I don't think that I can dig too well out here. Oh, I can. Yeah, I'm gonna do this. Let me see how that looks from the outside. Before I do, I actually do want to finish it as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because there are a lot more windows in this house than I initially expected. I can't even get to the second level because I've dug out the floor. So let's go outside and have a look. And oh boy, my inventory is triggering me at this point because it's so unorganized. Something I'm going to do off camera. Get you out of here before you ruin this outro that I have planned here. Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress. Thank you, dear viewer, for watching this video. If you liked it, then hopefully you'll be back for the next one. I'm not going to request that you like and subscribe. What I'm going to do is request that you think about me and you come back and watch the next video if you see the next episode available. That is how, or your loyalty in returning to the channel is how you might show your support. I shall see you all in the next one. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.